Greetings, this is Griff Ruby, Nostalgia Catholic, with yet another Isaac Asimov story. This one is The C-Chute. So this appears in the Galaxy magazine of October 1951, and it gets the cover. So what you have here is this Earth ship, like that, being shot at by these other ships, by aliens called chloros, because they breathe chlorine where we breathe oxygen. They hate oxygen the way we hate chlorine in terms of something to try to breathe. Okay, so chlorine's kind of a greenish gas, and I guess if you lit up oxygen, it would be kind of a pinkish gas. So that's kind of appropriate there. But as a result of the war, you see this ship is zapping it, with some different rays, and they're losing the battle. Okay, so table of contents again shows the same thing here. Very first thing, novelette, The C-Chute by Isaac Asimov, page 3. So, curiously enough, the cover page, or the first page within the story, doesn't come with a picture. It does have a blurb. The blurb reads, "The spaceship had to be recaptured from the aliens, which meant that somebody had to be a hero. But who would that be? And why?" Okay. And I could have probably added to that, and what effects will that have on everybody? Because you got this group of these guys here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You got 7 guys, well, rapidly 6. That was kind of neat here. You have a picture of all of them right here. And so you kind of get a picture of all of them, what they look like. Their faces kind of say something of who they are. So way at the extreme left, kind of way into that crease on the left side, you see kind of a guy with a dark circle around an eye. That is Colonel Wind something. Windham. I can't remember his name. Colonel Anthony Windham. Okay. Alright, Windham. And then all these other folks here. Alright, standing next to Windham, kind of behind with his fingers in his face, is Porter. He's kind of just scared for himself. Then next, going around, these 2 guys in the background. These are the 2 Polyeucus brothers, a couple of Greeks, obviously. One named Aristides, who gets killed almost immediately because he runs out into the corridor and gets shot at. Not totally clear who by. The other becomes incredibly angry and wants to tear every chloral limb from limb with his bare hands, Demetrius. Then, coming around the circle, the guy with his hand to his forehead or hair is Stuart. Stuart has had his hands replaced by the chloros because something happened where his hands got mangled. Then you have this kind of guy sitting upright, looking with a rather dour, sad sack face. And this guy is Mullen. We'll see more of him later. And finally, peeking in from the right side here is the young guy, LeBlanc. So it's kind of cool. You have this whole group of these people. So the chloros have caught that ship. They were catching it here. They caught it. And now they've taken it over. A couple of their chloros are taken over the ship. They're piloting back to their home planet. And most of the ship's got chlorine gas instead of oxygen gas inside. And somehow they've got a way to keep the chlorine from hurting any of the instruments on the ship. Okay, fine, whatever. But at any rate, so there's one room that has oxygen, or one small section of the ship. I mean, there might be a couple of rooms, like a restroom or whatever, but basically one small part of the ship has oxygen, and the humans need to stay there. Our 7 humans we just saw there rapidly goes down to 6. So the humans are there, so they're kind of trapped, and the chloros, even though there's only 2 of them on the ship, they got the ship and they're taking it back, and these are prisoners of war. So on the way back, they're kind of arguing, bickering among themselves because they just, I don't know, everybody's got their own little beef in their own background and whatnot. And I mean, Demetrius is understandably very, very angry and about losing his brother Aristide in the very first moment there. So you get a brief glimpse here. There's a lot of pictures here. You get a point at which one of the chloros has to step into a spacesuit. You see him standing there in a very billowy spacesuit. And on the other side, you see what's happened here. Some of the guys, well, let's see. Standing up with the cane is always Windham. The other person could be Mullen, but it could also be Stewart. It's unclear. Laying down, apparently, is Demetrius, because he made a lunge at it and they tried to stop him, because if he'd have really succeeded, he might have persuaded the Claws to just kill their human prisoners off. So there they are there. And then there's another picture where, well, the title C-Chute, or the C-Chute I should say, means casualty chute. Apparently in this particular story, spaceships tend to come, in fact maybe even various rooms and parts of rooms and so forth, the spaceships come equipped with these little casualty chutes. Anybody dies, you've got a quick and easy way to get rid of the dead body. Just put it in this little itty bitty airlock and off it goes into space. Forget all about it. I hate to think of all those dead bodies floating around in space waiting for some spacecraft to crash into them like a saucy, sludgy meteorite, but okay. At any rate, this is their solution, and apparently the possibility that people might die and dead bodies need to be gotten rid of really swiftly becomes a real concern, that it becomes a major design feature in these spaceships. Okay. Okay, but at any rate, there it is, and it's the way out into space. They also have a spacesuit in there. Very convenient. And apparently spacesuits are adjustable in size. That comes in a little bit in handy. Mullen is a rather small guy. He's barely 5 feet tall, 5'1.5". He always stresses that half inch. Okay, whatever. But at any rate, he's an interesting character. And I guess you could take the spacesuit and kind of twist it, wind it, screw it down to his size. And that's what they end up doing, because you actually get Demetrius and LeBlanc are actually stuffing Mullen in this spacesuit that you can see into a C-Chute, because the C-Chute, while it's supposed to be for disposal of dead bodies, is also another way out in space, or at least to the surface of the ship. He's got magnetic boots. Very convenient. Okay, when he gets out there, and sure enough, he's coming out, he's sticking out, and you can actually look carefully. One of his shoes here is already stuck magnetically to the side of the spaceship. The other is kind of flapping in space. He's coming out of this the airlock of the C-Chute now, and there he is. Okay. Then you have another picture. He's now standing on the outside of the spacecraft, maybe coming up near these little large tube areas. They're large enough to crawl in for maintenance purposes. Okay. But they're just maneuvering things. You can squirt steam out in this or that direction for subtle course correction and that sort of thing. But if you go inside there, you can and hope nobody turns the steam on, because that can either, if it doesn't fry you, it blast you out into space, and there you'd be spinning away, and you may never find your way back. But there's a little doorway, a little maintenance crawlway or something, you can get in there. You can almost get into the inside of the ship that way. You just got to bang on this one last door, and eventually if somebody gets curious to see what's going on, they can open that door and find you on the other side of it. And indeed, we've got one more drawing where apparently Mullen, it's a semi-spoiler that you can say Mullen is the hero, but the real key of the story is not who's the hero, but why he's a hero. And that's kind of the real surprise to the story. So here's Mullen. He's in the spacesuit. He's managed to find his way into the control room. You can see that. It's kind of neat the way they drew that, all dark with light here and there. And then they did the same thing here. And what's really cool, they did that. They have this drawing of this chloral being, and he's being zapped or something by some sort of oxygen or something like that. And you can see his weird sort of arm-like thing, his feet sticking out. I don't know if he's going the other way or his feet are just backward in comparison to ours. You see his little tiny stalk of a head coming out the top. This is the naked chloral in its own environment, or in normal clothing, not spacesuited, and so forth. But you got all these little lines. I like that. That's a really neat trick of doing that. So it looks really neat, and you're in this sort of control room. If you look carefully in there, right there, that's another dead chloral on the floor. He, basically physically attacked him, killed him, and left his dead body there on the floor. So, in a nutshell, of course, he ends up being a hero, and so forth. And one thing I really like in this story is how the one guy changes the way everybody else is. Everybody's just picking on everybody else and just kind of being mean and stupid to each other. Mostly his way of expressing their fear, I suppose, is being very realistic. Just the way people can sometimes be, at each other's throat in a situation where they really should be pulling together. I don't know. Sometimes a tight situation can put people at each other's throats, and sometimes it can pull them together. It will be interesting to see more how that works. But here's one dynamic, at least in this group, of how that works. Mullen, this kind of little nondescript guy who nobody seems to think very much of, just this bookish guy who's been there for 17 years and now is coming back to Earth, and then gets intercepted by this whole war and taking prisoners, ends up being the guy who is the hero. He goes out the casualty chute, the C-Chute, if you will, crawls around the outside of the spacecraft, goes up inside the maneuvering jet vent area. Luckily, does not get zapped with a blast of ionized hot steam from maneuvering. Gets inside some little maintenance crawlway door there, and then from there, finally tricks the chloros into opening the door to this other thing. What's here? What's going on? And they open up, and it's him, and he kills them, and then the humans are able to take over the ship and fly it back home, basically. But why did he do that? Why was he the hero? Well, but there's another thing that is really neat. He's out there doing this stuff, risking his life, and everybody in there's just waiting and waiting, and it's amazing to see how they all just pull together. They feel shamed by his example. He has set the bar high, and it's nice to see those people kind of feel like we need to kind of try to get along. I mean, this guy's doing all this stuff for us, and we were just sitting here being stupid. We should be better than that. It's a good way of showing that sometimes even one person can have a much bigger difference. Sometimes. So that's what I consider a pretty good story. As far as textual changes, I couldn't see any. It doesn't mean there are, but I didn't find one except one very obvious one. As originally published everywhere, it is the C-Chute. It's that on the cover. It's that in the table of contents. The C-Chute is that on the first page, the title page. The C-Chute. And even on all the pages, bottoms of the pages, everywhere, it is the C-Chute. That's the title. But then, for some unknown reason, when it got collected into Nightfall and Other Stories, they took away the word the. So now it's just, and you see it, C-Chute. Just C-Chute by itself. Don't know why. Doesn't really matter much. That's the only difference I noticed. And so that's C-Chute. It's kind of neat to see how it was. And as you see, it came with a lot of really neat artwork. And I really like that a lot. So that was pretty neat. And thanks for listening.